Welcome back, man, to Wholesale Hardknocks, episode 53, baby. It's your boy Daryll. Got my brother, the Mike Gomes, with us today. Every Friday week. What's up, bro? How you feeling?
I'm blessed today, bro. I'm blessed and just loving life. You know how we do.
Yes, sir. I love it. So what we talking about today, bro?
Man, we're talking about how you can fix and flip a property without ever buying it. Like, bro, do you know that you literally do not have to buy a house to flip it?
For real?
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Like your name never has to even go on the deed or anything. You never have to take control of the property. Well, you do take control technically, but you never own it. It's never in your name. You know, it would be like, you know how people flip cars?
Okay.
Like, you know how people will buy cars that are all messed up and then they'll put some new tires on it, maybe put a new windshield on it, paint it up, and then resell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be like doing that for somebody, but never actually buying the car.
What's that called?
It's called the Novation agreement, bro.
Okay.
Novation agreement. So, dude, there's like, as there's been so much buzz about creative finance and everything the past, like, what would you say? Probably the past like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Like one of the big buzzes. So one of the biggest things people will push out there for like courses and stuff is a Novation course. Like when they're specifically just talking about creative finance, they'll like push a Novation course in general. You see what I mean? So Novation is a niche in itself that people are pushing really, really hard. Because it's freaking dope. Because it solves a lot of problems that most people cannot solve. And you get yourself involved in many deals that nobody else could get yourself involved with. So up to this point, like what would you say from, so have you done a Novation before?
I've never done Novation. No, never successfully done a Novation. I pitched it, it got accepted a couple of times, but the deal never went through.
So what would you say, like from your standpoint, what would you say your thoughts of Novation agreements are?
Not really my thoughts. So my thoughts overall of what a Novation agreement is, it's just almost like a partnership agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's where the partnership comes in, where the seller, they're the partners with the house. We're the partners with the crews, with the money, with whatever, right? We're going to fix this up, list it on the market, or not fix it up at all and just list it on the market for them and just sell it to a MLS buyer. Right. So that's pretty much when the Novate we'll use a Novation, we'll pitch a Novation when they're about like 15,000 away from our wholesale price. You know, if we can save money on closing costs and holding costs, then you could probably work a deal out in there.
Love it. So yeah, bro, like I was saying before, it's essentially just fix and flipping a property without ever buying it. So going back to the car situation, let's just say Daryll had a Honda and he was like, yo, Mike, I have this Honda here that I want $5,000 for. And I'm like, okay, cool. Dude, why would I give you $5,000 cash? Like right now, can you just wait like 90 days instead of me giving you cash right now? And I was like, yeah, I don't care. The thing's been sitting there for 6 months anyway. So I'm like, yeah, dude, it would help out the situation much more. And I would be able to get you the $5,000 if we did it this way, where I just came in and I put some new tires on the car. I painted the car for you. I put a new transmission in or whatever it needs. And then I'll go put it on my car lot. And then once it sells on the back end, we'll use my crew to do the repairs. We'll use our money to do the repairs, and we'll use my car lot to sell it, to find the customer. Right? You don't have to do any of that. Like literally, it's hands off. It's pretty much like me giving you $5,000 in cash. Like it's pretty much just like our cash offer when it comes to cars, because there are people that are like, the we buy junk cars, just like we buy ugly houses. It's the same exact business. So instead of that, instead of me giving you the cash right up front, it's just like that. But instead of it being 30 days, is now 90 days. And Daryl's like, yeah, I don't care. This thing's been sitting for 6 months anyway. Okay. So that's what a novation agreement is. So you're able to use a novation agreement when the seller is okay with waiting a little bit.
Okay. So one of the objections that I hear all the time is, why doesn't the seller just do this themselves? Why don't they just go to a real estate agent themselves? Because isn't that what you do? Just go to a real estate agent and just list it?
Yeah, 100%. So, well, let's go back, right? If we think back to last week's episode, we talked about creative finance and we broke down the two main creative finance strategies, which is subject to and seller finance, right? And why don't we, because we promised them we would go over the mixture of both. Why don't we touch on that just a little bit, touch on what the mixture of both creative, both subject to and seller finance is, and then we'll go into like all the objections and exactly how we do the novation agreement and stuff like that. Because people were asking, they're like, yo, all you guys talked about was sub to and seller finance. I want to know about the other two. So I want to touch on the first one and then we can like dive deep into novation. So like
Hybrid.
because you've done some hybrids, right?
Yeah, I've done a bunch of hybrids. So a hybrid is when the seller has a mortgage, but they still have equity, right? And they say, hey, I want market value for this property because they owe a certain amount of money. So say somebody owes to the bank $100,000 and they want $200,000 for the house. So they say, hey, I want this $200,000, but I owe 100. I want my $100,000 in equity, right? So like, okay, cool. You can get this $100,000, but it makes no sense for us to go get a bank loan to pay off your bank loan, right? I'd rather just pay you that money. So let's just keep that mortgage in place. We pay the monthly payments to that mortgage every single month. And now we're also making a second payment towards our second note, which is our seller, who they'll get the rest of their money in payments, right? So their equity, they're becoming a bank on their equity. And then there's already a bank in place, Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, whoever, they're already in first position, and you're making two payments now every single month. So you own the property without having to go get a loan. You're just taking over somebody else's loan, creating a second note, a second mortgage, if you will, and making two payments now rather than one. Now you have to make sure that it's still cash flows, right? The whole reason why we do this is to cash flow. So if you're gonna take over somebody's mortgage, the only way you can pay them a certain amount or know what you can pay them is by running the numbers and seeing what you can rent the property for.
Love it. So when you're going to underwrite it, you probably want to look at the mortgage that's in place first, right?
Without a doubt. Yeah, you have to know what the current mortgage is and what your spread is, right? Like what you have to work with. So like I'm working on one right now, and I need to underwrite when we get off of here, where the seller his monthly payment is $2,200. Right
Okay.
now, the rent so he has an upstairs and a downstairs unit in a townhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can get a little bit more than what he was getting, but I think we can rent the downstairs for about $1,800 alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mortgage is $2,200, and the upstairs can get about $3,500.
Damn, bro, what the heck is the upstairs?
Yeah, it's a three and a half bedroom house upstairs, and then the downstairs is a completely separate unit.
Okay.
And this is in downtown. This one is in downtown Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Got a lot of traffic, a lot of movement in that area, right? So what I have to do is go back and figure out what the rent is exactly, like what's the highest and best use for this property, what I can get, and then subtract it from what my monthly expenses are, my PITI plus any other management expenses and holding costs, right? Servicing. There's a lot of extra payments that I would need to pay, and I would need to make sure that I'm cash flow positive, because if I'm not cash flow positive at all, I can't even pay the seller anything, right? And I know at least for me, I want at least 20% cash on cash return when I underwrite a creative deal, right? And like some people may take less, some people may be okay with less, and I mean it's your preference, right? It depends on what you're doing and what you want to how you want your buy box to be, right? So
Love it. So pretty much this hybrid deal means a mixture of the two that we broke down last week. Last week we went over seller finance and subject to. If you guys missed it, go back to last week's episode. We broke down deals. We broke down exactly how to get seller finance and subject to deals done, what they're all about, all that stuff. Daryll right now is talking about mixing them both together, right? Because seller finance is when like 100% seller finance deal is when there's absolutely no debt on the property.
yeah.
And the seller is just the bank. Subject to, like 100% subject to deal, is when you were solely just taking over the mortgage and that's it. No other extra stuff added. But Daryl's like, bro, I've ran into some situations before where the seller has this loan in place and they're willing to let me take the responsibility over. Let's just say the mortgage is there's $200,000 left over. Daryl's like, yo, homeboy said that I could make his mortgage payments and it'll stay in his name. It works. But at the end of the day, he wants $300K, but I'm not giving him $100,000 up front. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make his mortgage payments of 200 for whatever it is on 200 grand. Plus I'm going to give him money towards the $100,000 every single month. That way I can come up to his number. And every other wholesaler in the area wasn't able to come up to his number, but I am. So, what we're talking about is when you go to look at those deals to see if it's a deal or not, the first thing that you want to look at is the existing mortgage, right? Because that's going to be where your baseline is. So you look at what the existing mortgage is, and then you look at what you can highest and best use. Why don't you talk about that really quick? Because I think that goes over a lot of people's heads, like highest and best use. Because here's the thing, bro. So people will send me so many freaking deals and leads and everything to my Instagram or emails like all the time. And I'm like, dude, I don't have any information here, dog. It's like, hey, I have this who's willing to sell or finance me a house in Florida. What should I do with it? I'm like, dude, I don't freaking know. It's just they'll be like, I have this person that wants to sell or finance a deal in Florida. Is this a deal? I'm like, dog, how am I supposed to know that?
Bro, I mean, so that's the fun part, right? Like, so this is the difference, right? This isn't wholesaling anymore, right? Like now you're investing in real estate, right?
Mm.
Now you're working on owning a property and making this thing cash flow for you passively. It's like this is actually real estate now. Like this is what you transform to a real estate business. And one thing you have to definitely separate your wholesaling business and your holding business.
Mm.
Right? Like a lot of people, like I know I messed up by mixing the two, right? Like mixing the wholesale and the buy and hold businesses when they just slow each other down, right? So once you figure out, okay, I'm going to hold this property, what I do is I'm extremely conservative. It needs to cash flow as a traditional rental before it does anything, right? Like the property has to support itself. So if I can make this a long-term rental, 12 month lease, and at the end of the day, if all my bills are paid plus paying my private lender, and the mortgages and everything is paid, and this property, I don't care if I cash flow $100, right? Like the property supports itself.
Mm.
So now at this point, I'm going to see if there's anything else I can do to make this make more money. Right. So now I'm going to look for Airbnb. Can I make it an Airbnb? Can I make it a midterm rental? Can I make it a patch split and rent out the rooms? Right. Can I do whatever? Right. There's a bunch of different things. Can I make this an assisted living? Can I do something to make this thing cash flow? And once you have the asset, I think there's so many different reasons to buy properties, right? Whether you're buying for depreciation, buying for equity, buying to live in the property, right? Like buying to pay principal down, right? There's a million different ways, cash flow, a million different reasons to buy a house. So now you have to think, like, if you're keeping this yourself, what is the reason why you're keeping real estate, right? Like, what do you want to do with this? So first thing is make sure that the property supports itself, right? Does this work as a long-term rental? And now if it's a great deal, it's in a great area, you see that it's going to appreciate, this is something that you want to keep in your portfolio. Me personally, right, what I do is I make sure, okay, this property supports itself, then I will potentially, if I can find another strategy that can make this property really crush it and cash flow, then that's what I'm going to do. Right? And I'll keep this property because at the end of the day, it supports itself. Right? Like I bought a house, Mike, where I'm paying, my mortgage payment is $400 a month. Right?
Dang, where the heck is this house?
Yeah, it's in Philly, right? So this is a house where this thing is gonna appreciate. This thing is in the middle of a city that's gentrifying right now. Right.
Very smart. That might have went over some people's heads too.
Right. So there's throughout this neighborhood, right around the block, right, there's houses that are getting knocked down and apartments are getting rebuilt up. Right. They're knocking down, bro. They're knocking down townhouses right around the corner. Not even like, like inner city, like row homes, knocking them down, building duplexes right there. Right. Like they're doing a lot in that area and it's in the early stages. Right. So you have to understand, like when I first bought it, when I first closed on it, my first idea was to wrap it. Couldn't find a wrap buyer. So now we're just looking and trying to figure out what are the best strategies to do on this property. And this is something that I was doing wrong, right? Because now I'm responding. I wasn't thinking forward. Like if I was thinking of ahead, then I wouldn't have had to been scrambling when I first found out that I couldn't find a wrap buyer. But eventually we realized, like, look, we're not going to find a wrap buyer for this. We're just going to keep it, right? So we're looking at the numbers and everything. My payment is only $400 a month, and this loan was taken out in 2008. So why is that so important? Right? We're in 2023. How many years ago was that? Like 15 years, whatever, probably more. Right?
Yeah, a long time ago, about 15 years.
A long time ago, right? So why is that important? That mortgage payment that I'm paying every single month, that $400, I'm not paying interest. I'm paying straight principal right now. Right? So every payment that I make, I'm building equity in a area that is being gentrified. Right? So I don't care if I pay this $400 a month and this property just sits there, which is probably what it's going to do until somebody comes along and this shit, until I pay it off and I can just sell it because it's going to appreciate, right? Or at that point, I'll have enough equity to where I can just fix it up, refinance, and make some money. You know what I mean? So like there's a bunch of different reasons to buy houses. So you have to ask yourself this when you're underwriting a deal. And even if you're going to wholesale the deal, right, you want to underwrite it as if you would buy this, because when you're selling it to a buyer, you have to sell them the picture, right? You got to paint the picture for them. It's sales, right? So you have to show them what they would be missing if they were saying no to this, right? So you have to really underwrite this and ask yourself, would I buy this deal? Like if you're wholesaling the deal, like you need to ask yourself, will I buy cash or creative? Would I buy this deal?
I love it. That's actually like my number one rule. While I'm underwriting deals or whatever the case is, I look at it from a standpoint of, would I buy this thing? And then if I wouldn't buy this thing, I don't just scratch it off the list. That's when I go send it out to a dispo wholesaler and say, hey, where would you have to be? Where do you have buyers? Because how I would buy is very different than how other people would buy. Bro, dude, I have this deal that we did. We closed on it a couple of weeks ago. And I get this thing under contract for $335,000. Okay. I genuinely thought, bro, that we were going to get maybe a $15,000 assignment fee. I thought we would sell the deal around like 350 grand. That's where I was like, if I was going to fix and flip the property, that's where I think my max would be. Right. So I'm thinking, yeah, okay, we'll squeak a little one out here. So we lock it up at 335. Dude, our dispo, no, 342. That's what it was. 342 is what we locked it up at. My dispo team shops it out. I want to say at like 390 or something like that. Dude, we get an offer for 425.
Damn.
So it's like a $90-something thousand assignment fee. Dude, catch this. Okay. I'm like mind blown. I'm like, bro, what? I thought we were gonna make like 10, 15 grand. Who the heck would ever buy this house?
Yeah.
Like, dude, this is a deal that I almost just passed up on because I'm like, the numbers is it even worth going through all the TC work and all that type of stuff? right? I'm thinking that it's not even that big of a deal. And then I send it off to Dispo and they're like, bro, we have crazy buyers for this. This area is amazing. And I'm like, okay, cool. They send it out, get a $90,000 assignment fee. Check this out. This week, I'm sitting in my office one of these mornings and I get an email from a wholesaler. Somebody closed on the property who was a wholesaler. Dude, they're shopping it out on the marketplace. I don't know if it's sold yet. I want to check back on it, but they're shopping it out to their buyers at $495.
Dang.
Isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
So the moral of the story is the reason why I brought this up is because, yes, I will underwrite the deal and look at the deal. This is when I'm wholesaling. I will look at it as if I am buying the deal first. And if I would buy the deal, immediately, let's get this thing under contract, like ASAP. If I'm like, I don't really know, I'll send it off to a dispo house. I'll send it off to my buyers in that area and get their feedback and see where they would have to be, where they would have buyers or where they would buy it at. And that's how you make sure you squeak out every opportunity. When we lock up a deal, when I think that I would buy it, dude, those are our biggest spreads. Those are like,
because you're conservative, right? You don't force deals, right? Like I already know, Mike, you have a buy box and you stick to it, right? It's not like, what if I can do this? And no, this is the buy box, right? Like this is what it is. And if you would buy it, then you know damn well somebody else would buy it.
100%. And if I would buy it, that means for somebody else, it's a smoking deal. You got to think about it. Somebody like us, bro, that are being sent deals left and right, that have an acquisition business, and we're looking at contracts every single day. We see all the opportunities, right? Somebody else who doesn't have access to contracts, who is just like grinding their gears, trying to get a fix and flip under their belt or try to do a buy and hold property or something like that, dude, they don't have access to the amount of opportunities that we have access to. So they're going to pull the trigger on a much higher purchase price than we would. So there's a bunch of different buyers out there. You see what I'm saying? So that's why if you always just operate from your own standpoint and lock up contracts like that, you're going to have very big spreads on those deals. But then when you're kind of iffy and you don't know, send them out. Don't just throw them out in the trash. I've learned the hard way. Like I have done that. I have went on an appointment before. This is how I started sending off my deals to dispo wholesalers. I ended up going on an appointment, gave an offer of like 170 and didn't get accepted. I ended up seeing the thing on Facebook for 240. The wholesaler locked it up at 200 and sold it at like 245. And I'm like, bruh, like, how did I not know? Like I thought my numbers were legit. I was like, ain't nobody buying this deal over like 185. Somebody bought it for like freaking $60,000, $70,000 over that. So it's crazy.
Let's real quick though. Let's talk about that, bro, because that's a mindset thing, right? That and you feeling a lot of people. I know I used to do it. I used to have a scarcity mindset, right? And used to just think that. I know we say treat every lead like it's your last one, right? But you still need to be ready and willing to walk away from any deal at any time, right? Because you have an abundance mindset that you know for a fact that person that you're going to do a deal with is out there waiting for you, right? And you don't need to waste your time talking to people who don't want to talk to you, right? Now, I give people at least a 10-minute limit, right? Where we talk on the phone for at least 10 minutes to see if they're motivated or not before I disqualify them completely, right? But there's no need to waste your time with that past it, right? And if you have an abundance mindset, you'll know that, like I said, that deal is out there, right? That person that needs your help and is waiting for you, they're out there. If you make enough calls, they're going to be out there, right? You're going to get that deal. So this is just a numbers game, right? Like if you're too focused on one lead and you're scared to walk away from that one lead, you're never going to be able to attract the good leads, like the actual deals that are out there, because you're too focused on this one, that you're laser focused on one that's just not even for you, right? And the whole world has billions of properties, millions of properties out here, and millions of people who need help. Right.
1000%. I get a lot of that, especially out here, dude. There's like it's just like it's data. There aren't as many cash transactions out here than there are down in a place like Florida or something like that. So it is data, right? There aren't that as many deals up here than there is in some other markets. That is what it is. However, they are abundant out here. They're everywhere. People are doing so many transactions, like it is crazy. So,
Right.
but we'll talk to people. They're a little bit harder to find out here than they are in another market like Florida or North Carolina or South Carolina or something like that. But they are out here
You're
100%.
still getting done every single day, multiple times a day in your market.
1000%.
Probably what, like 50 plus times a day, huh?
Yes, bro. And it's even better. You get a better payday when you get paid on these deals. And the coolest thing about it is, dude, I was with somebody the other day, and he was talking about him going on an appointment, and he was talking about how he was about to negotiate with the seller. And I'm like, bro, it's not gonna work, dog. Like, I'm just like, that's not gonna work. Just the way that he was explaining that he was going to go about it. I was just thinking in my head, I was like, dude, it's just probably not gonna work. Just because I really understand sales. I get sales. Like I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, dude, I probably would have already locked this thing up. I wouldn't even have been going on the appointment. We would have already locked this thing up. But I say this to say, dude, up here in New England, I promise you, the competition for people that are good at sales is not there. Like, dude, if you're good at sales up here, you are getting the freaking deal. I promise you.
Most places. Bro, that's
Yeah,
most
actually,
places.
that is most places.
So look, here's what it is, right? So like if you decide that you want to get into this business, you want to get into wholesaling, there's there's people, there's different tiers of people that get into wholesaling, right? The people who aren't getting deals, the only way that those people are not getting deals, and you may not like this to hear this, but the only way that those people are not getting deals is because they're not putting the work in, right? They're not making the calls consistently every single day. There's no way you can tell me that you want 6 months in this business, calling every single day, having 20 conversations a day, right? 100 conversations a week, 400 conversations a month, right? There's no way that you tell me that you're putting in 5 offers a day and you don't get a deal in 6 months, right? And that's being very generous, 6 months. So like you have a group of people who wholesaling does not work for them. And those are the people who don't put the work in, right? Then you have the people who are consistent. If you're consistent in this business, you will do deals.
Yeah.
Right? You will do deals. If you're consistent in this business, you're making calls every single day, like we said, making offers every single day, you will get deals. Even if you're not having 100 conversations a week, if you're having 3 conversations a day, right? If you do this for 3 hours straight a day for 90 days, you most likely get a deal. Right? You will get a deal because it's just a numbers game, right? And then you have the people who are extremely consistent, right? Like at high level performers, extremely consistent, and you're making 1,000 calls, 1,000 conversations a week. Then they're doing deals 3 to 5 plus deals a month, right? Like you're doing a good amount of deals. And then the top level are the people who have that go hard, work ethic, and then are good at sales. Once you're good at sales, you're going to get way more deals in this because it's just that much easier, right? Because you're not going to need, the average is 50 conversations is going to get you a deal. But I was tracking my numbers. I'm at like 7, bro. I'm at like, since I got back on the phone, I'm at like 7 conversations is a deal.
On dogs, bro. It's crazy. I was literally just looking at I was listening to some of my acquisition managers calls this week, and I was like, oh, dude, I'm gonna go hop on the phones tomorrow and get like 3 deals just by listening to the call. Just by listening to the call recordings. There were like, I think there were 2 different calls where we had sent out a contract and it didn't get signed. And I was like, oh my gosh, bro, I would have got that thing freaking signed. And this is what you got to do as a business owner. You got to let people go out and learn the thing and go through the fire and stuff like that. But I just know, because I really, really, truly understand how to sell, that as I listen to that conversation, I literally know exactly what I have to say. I already know, Daryl, how that conversation is going to go before I'm even having it. And I already know that I'm going to be able to lock that deal up. There's 2 of them that I looked at today in the system. Later, like right before we got on, I'm sitting here like listening to some of these calls and call calibrating and analyzing the business for the day. And I'm like, oh gosh, I got 2 contracts I can go get tomorrow. It's so crazy. It's like you can, once you understand sales, bro, you can literally just predict what the heck is about to happen.
Bro, the type of stuff that I'm seeing in my pipeline is like, bro, what the heck? Like, and it's crazy because like this is just like we can have some talk right now. Like we're behind the scenes, bro. Honestly, we may have to get off topic just a little bit, but
we're supposed to talk about novations today, but screw it.
Yeah, nah, bro, for real. It's just weird because like I'm at a point in just running the team where not even just running the team, just in general. It's like I need M's in the bank account. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just at a point where it's like on one hand, I know if I go hard because like I'm the best salesperson I know, right? Let me not toot my own horn, you know what I'm saying? Fuck with all y'all, but I'm the best salesperson I know, right? What do you say?
I said besides Mike, but go ahead.
Besides Mike, right? And if I go hard for as much as I can, right, throughout the day, even though I have a whole bunch of stuff, I know I can leave the week with 2-3 contracts, 4 or 5 contracts a week. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, on one hand, I want to build the team up, but on the other hand, I'm like, yo, I want to get this money right now. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm just stuck in a place where I feel like I can do both. You know what I mean? But it's just like, I don't know, bro.
Here's how I look at it. For us, in a regular wholesale business where you're generating leads, right? Whatever way you're doing that, it's gonna take us all of our time and energy to lock up like freaking 5 to 10 deals a week. I honestly, like, dude, if I sat in my system and called all freaking day, I would probably do that. Like, to be completely honest with you, there's so many freaking opportunities in my CRM that I am sitting here like itching. I just want to get off of this freaking.
I'm getting excited thinking about it
right now and go and call them. But at the end of the day, that would take a ton of work. Now, here's where I think that we would be without that much of our time, where would be able to really lock up a lot of those deals is I'm seeing that when I put a filter on something, like wholesalers will want me to call their sellers like me. Dude, I can't call everybody seller.
Yeah.
Right. Especially just like follow-up type of sellers. But there are a lot of times where a seller is like ready to freaking go and they just need a little bit of help to get over the finish line. I could sit there and talk to those people all day do like 25 contracts in a week.
For sure.
And there's a filter for that. Right. So here's the coolest part. Here's my point. When you get to that level where any and everybody listens to your calls and you're putting it out into the marketplace that you can close and everything, like me and Daryll have been doing, you guys have probably listened to a lot of our sales calls. When you put yourself out there and people know that you're a closer, they're going to send you the money. Like, and you put a filter on that by saying, hey, dude, I really don't have time to call that many sellers because I don't. Right. I can't call your follow-up sellers, but if somebody's ready to go and you need help, yeah, I got you. Do I have to do the deal with you? Absolutely not. I don't care. Like you could take the commission or whatever the case is, but the actual thing of getting the contract signed, yes, that's one conversation that I can go make. And if I just put a filter on that and had wholesalers just sending me sending me leads all the time, I literally sit there and get 25 contracts signed a week. But what I'm trying to get at is if we were in our CRM following up with sellers, it's very hard to do that because you have to follow up. It takes multiple conversations.
Not for sure.
Daryll, you are a gangster salesperson You do not need to be on multiple follow-up calls is what I'm trying to say.
Nah, you're right. I don't need to be on the follow-up calls. You're right. You're definitely right. I need to be more in like the sales manager role and just calling people that, like you said, that are right there.
That are right there that just need a little hump. Because I was honestly listening to the calls today, and I'm just like, oh, dude, we literally could have got 2 contracts today. All I have to do is make 2 phone call conversations, and we have 2 contracts. Like, that is crazy.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like, dude, there's people watching here right now who have those opportunities in the pipeline, who sent out a contract today, who didn't get it signed, and they're just a freaking conversation away because they just didn't say the right thing. Those are the people that, like, somebody that is at a super high level, even higher than a sales manager, somebody that's just like super high level. That's who they should be talking to all the time, unless, for the sake of coaching and everything, like we have students under us that need help with talking to sellers and everything like that. I love talking to sellers. I talk to sellers all day. And that's what I love to do. But if I'm coming from a standpoint of like, if you were like, hey, Mike, I just want to talk to sellers all day and get after it, dude, the leads are out there for you to just close that. You don't have to follow up like you would in your regular CRM. Like very, very similar to like PPC leads.
Facts. Naomi said, Naomi, we're gonna jump on the call later. I'll hit you back. Been super busy today. But yeah, Mike, let's talk a little bit about some novations, dog.
Let's get it, bro. Okay. So going back to the beginning of the episode, we were talking about novation agreements. What a novation agreement is when you fix and flip a property and you never actually buy it. Now, why the heck would anybody do this? Daryll brought up a really good question. He's like, Mike, people will ask me, why the heck wouldn't somebody just list it with a realtor and do it themselves? My answer to that, Daryll, is yes, they should. Every single time. That's it. That's exactly what I say to my sellers. I'm like, well, why are you not just listing this thing on the MLS? Something has to come up. There has to be some sort of problem that you solve in order to get the novation agreement done. So, but what you'll hear is that, oh no, you're just gonna, like, people, especially on YouTube and stuff, will sell you the dream that you can just wholesale deals to retail sellers on the MLS as long as the seller is asking for less than the ARV. That's not the case. They're missing the biggest part out. You can do a novation agreement when you solve a problem. So every novation agreement that I've ever done, even though I only like to do novation agreements when we're putting less than $10,000 worth of work into the property, and then we put it on the MLS, even though it's almost like an as-is type of thing, and some people might look at that like, well, why doesn't he just list it on the MLS? Well, why didn't you call the seller and figure out his situation?
Right.
I had that. I remember one of my first novation agreements ever. I had a realtor who was going to list the property, and he was just super confused. He's like, why the heck doesn't the seller just list it on the market? I'm like, dude, because he has a problem. His problem is he's moving down to Florida, for one. In 2 weeks, he's not going to be here to facilitate anything with the realtor. There also needs about $5 to $10 grand worth of work in order for it to be FHA ready. He doesn't have the time to do that. And he has a brother in the house who is a tenant who needs $3 grand to leave. And we need to find him a place to go. So we solved all his problems. We ended up getting paid like $50,000 to do it. But that's why somebody would rather have one of us step in and do the novation agreement rather than just listing it on the market themselves. Make sense?
It makes sense. So he doesn't have time to take calls with real estate agents and facilitate walkthroughs, do whatever he's going to need to do to sell it.
100%. So this is just like any other lead that I talk to. Any other lead that I talk to, one of my first questions that I ask a lead is, why are you not just listing this thing with your realtor? Or You know, what are you and your realtor been talking about? How was that conversation went? Like, because that's typically what everybody thinks of. Nobody even thinks about wholesaling in the real world. It's like nobody knows what cash buyers are in the real world. They're just like, oh, I want to sell my property. I'm just going to go to a realtor. Why the heck are you not doing that? That's my very first question. And if they have a valid reason to why they're not doing it, like homeboy that I was just talking about, then we might have a problem that we could solve. In that case, we did. So no matter what, there's always some sort of problem that you could solve. Okay.
So Novation doesn't just work for everybody?
Novation doesn't just work for everybody, bro. So here's what I'll do. That actually, matter of fact, that deal that I just talked about, why don't we go over that?
Let's go over it, big dog. I'm excited. One's in the chat if you're excited to go over this deal.
Okay, cool. So I go. Oh, dude, there's a lot of lessons on this deal. So we call our seller Nick. Okay. We call him and he said that he wants to sell his property. And then he just starts ghosting us. I actually go out to Nick's house. I meet homeboy in his kitchen. And I'm talking about this is like when I first got into creative finance and I was so jacked up about it. I'm like, yo, why don't we just take your house down subject to and all these I just thought I knew what the heck I was doing, right? This is
every option at once, huh?
Literally, that's exactly what I was doing. And this is something you should not do. I was literally telling him all the things. It's like, bro, we could do seller finance and we could freaking do we could suck through your house. We could do all the things, right?
That was me too.
I get it, dude, because creative finance is dope. And that's it makes you want to do that. But don't do that. Figure out what Nick's problem is and then solve it. Okay. So I go on the appointment in the beginning. Very first, actually, I think it was off the first call, I booked the appointment with him. Go on the appointment, sit in his kitchen, we're chatting. He's like, Mike, I really like what this is about. And da 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 da. I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, bro. I didn't know about sales at this point. I was very brand new. Okay. So I end up putting him in some sort of follow-up sequence in my CRM, but didn't set the follow-up correctly. I just didn't know exactly how to have the conversation with my guy, Nick, over here. So 3 months goes by, crickets, no answers. That's when my follow-up was when this guy. That's how, Mike didn't know what the heck he was doing in the beginning. So I kept following up. Dude, finally, 6 months later, I'm still trying to call him. No answers. Here's the line that got me to get him to answer. After 6 months, I'm like, yo, you know what? I'm sick of this, bro. Homeboy, I know homeboy wants to sell his freaking house. I'm sick of this guy not answering me. How do I get him on the phone? So I text him, and this is the line that I text him. You guys can write this down. Hey, Nick, very simple. Hey, Nick, I'm just going to assume that you are not selling your house anymore.
Pull away.
Immediately, he ends up calling me. I'm talking about 5 or 10 minutes later after I send that text. He called me and said, oh, no, Mike, it's funny enough. I actually am moving down to Florida here in the next few weeks. I want to sell now. Can you come back by the house? So I came back by the house. So now here's me literally in homeboy's driveway. Right? We're sitting by here. Homeboy has a car right here. And we're just chilling. I'm like, dude, so tell me what's going on with it. He's like, yeah, Mike, same situation. I'm like, well, tell me, I forget, how much did you want again? He says, I want 300K. I'm like, okay. In my mind, I know that the ARV on this property is 375. Okay. And I know in order to get it to 375, all I got to do for repairs is $5,000. Okay. So I'm like, Nick, bro, dude, I can't give you $300,000 for this property. It makes no sense. How the heck am I going to do that? I got to go out. I got to go get a hard money loan. They're going to charge me a bunch of points and interest. I'm going to have to close in your house. I'm going to pay the closing costs and all that. Dude, there's no way. This is I can only resell this property for 375. It's not going to make sense for me to do this at 300. And he's like, damn, Mike, well, I don't know. Just get me my $300,000. I'm like, what do you owe on the mortgage? He's like, 200 grand. I'm like, okay. So you really just are caught up on this $100,000. You want 100 grand. And he's like, yes, bro, I don't care. He's like, my goal is to move down to Florida in a couple weeks. And then 6 months later, I'm moving out of the country for good. And I just want my $100,000 before I move out of the country. So I'm like, I'm like, Nick, what if I can come up with some way to help facilitate everything for you? You wouldn't have to deal with a realtor. You wouldn't have to deal with any closing costs. You wouldn't have to deal with your brother or anything like that, or repairs. I'll deal with all that. And in about 3 months, I'll get you your $100,000 in your pocket that you're looking for. He's like, yeah, dude, do what you got to do. I'm down. I'm out. I'm going to Florida in 2 weeks. I'm out. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, what does your brother need? He's like, well, he's probably going to need about 3 grand to put down for rent on a new apartment. I'm like, okay, well, why don't we write up an agreement with your brother that states if I give him $3,000, he's going to give me the keys. So we put 2 agreements in place. We put one agreement that says I'm going to do this novation with Nick at $300K, and then another agreement with his brother where what we call cash for keys. Cash for keys is literally how it sounds. I give his brother cash and he gives me the keys. So we had to give his brother 3 grand. Gave his brother 3 grand. Nick went to Florida, gave his brother 3 grand probably a week after that, and he gave us the keys. Now we got our contractors to come in here. So we got our painter to come in here, and we got a floor guy to come in here, and we got a cleaner to come in here. And we did a couple things to the property in order to get it up to speed. And then literally 30 days after that, we listed it. I think this was, I want to say we listed it at 379. We ended up listing it at 379. It sold at 390 with a 10K kickback. What does that mean? This is probably going over some people's heads. Like, Mike, what the heck is a kickback? A kickback means of this $390,000, we had to give 10,000 of it back to our buyer. So let's just call this the buyer. This is the end buyer. An end buyer is somebody who was buying the house to live in it. Okay. So when we listed this property, we were looking for this guy. We were looking for this guy to come in and give us 300K for Nick's property that we can give to him, plus all the rest of the fees and stuff involved with selling a house and our profit. Okay. So once we found him, he was like, yeah, we'll give you 390 for the property, but of that 390, I just need 10,000 bucks back. We're like, okay, cool. So if we look at the numbers here, just to break this thing down, it's sold at 390. Dow, if you sell the property at 390, do you actually walk away with 390?
Heck no, I wish.
So we had a couple things, right? We had realtor fees, we had closing costs, and we had concessions, which was this. Concessions is when somebody says, hey, I need a kickback at close, or I need you to go redo the bathroom, or I need you to paint or something like that. We had that here. Okay, that was 10,000 bucks. So between all of that, right, we were at 40. It's about 50 grand. Okay, for all that. So what does that leave us with? We had to, let's think about this. 390. Of that 390, we had to give 10K back to the seller. We had to put in about $40,000 in closing costs, commissions, all that type of stuff. What are we walked away with? We're left with, what is that? 340? 340. So we had 340 left, but what do we have to do, Daryl? We had to pay Nick his $300,000. So we paid Nick his 300 grand, and we walked away with 40 grand. So that's how we got that deal done. If we bought this house in cash, bro, we'd probably almost break even. So literally, just by us not having to buy the house, we were able to make $40,000 on this deal. Does this make sense?
And you didn't even put You didn't even have to buy it, bro.
Never had to buy the deal ever. Most people, you know what was funny, Daryl? I had this deal that I was actually shopping it out to some cash buyers because at this time I never did a novation agreement in my life. This is my first novation agreement. And I'm like, I'd rather just wholesale it and take 10 grand and walk away. Dude, I was shopping this thing out to cash buyers. Everybody was telling me to kick rocks.
Bro, so what happens if you put work into it? Right? Like let's say you put work into the novation, whether it's paint, whatever, carpets, whether you do a lot of work or a little bit of work, and you find a buyer. And what happens if the seller decides they don't want to sell it to you anymore?
That's a great question. Okay. So there's a couple different things you guys are going to need. I'm not going to write this down, but I need you guys to write this down. First thing that you need is a purchase and sale agreement, which pretty much states that you can do the novation, right? It has some verbiage in there. You know what? Here's what I'll do, Daryl. For the novation agreement, like the actual contract itself, the blank contract, I'll send that over to you and your team so you could post it in the Discord, and it'll be in the free Facebook group, in the Blueprint Facebook group. So you guys will literally be able to get that novation agreement. The same exact one, I think it's the same exact one that I used for that deal that I just talked about.
That's dope.
That blank one. If you go into Daryl's Dog Pound, but here's the deal. I need at least 3 people to request it. So if you go in the Blueprint Facebook group and request it, I need 3 people to request it, like physically write in the Facebook group, I want the blank novation agreement. Same thing with Daryl's Dog Pound. At least 3. There has to be at least 3. If it's not 3, I'm not dropping it. Okay.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. If y'all want this, just tell them just to type it and just ask. So
in the description below, you will see both Daryl's Dog Pound and the free Facebook group, and we'll drop that in there. So a couple things that you need. You need that agreement that I just talked about. Then you're going to need a power of attorney. Then you're going to need a lien. Potentially, I didn't put a lien on it, but if you're putting a decent amount of love into it, you put a lien on it and you put a memorandum. So those are the 4 things that are going to protect you in the sale. And then in the event that, like Daryl said, the guy says, hey, I'm not going to sell this property anymore. Well, if you have a lien in the property, then you could potentially foreclose on it. Okay. If you have the memorandum in place, they'll never be able to sell it to anybody else but you. I actually have one right now. Dude, I was doing a novation agreement. This is classic. Did this novation agreement and didn't do it. Almost did it. This is crazy. Guy comes in our pipeline. I call him and I'm like just pitching him the novation. And he's like, yeah, cool. I'll do it. $275. You got yourself a deal. I'm like, all right, cool. Lock it up at $275. He's like, under one condition. My wife is in Japan and she needs to get over to Florida. And she needs to do this here in the next 7 days. And I need $2,500 in order for her to get back. And I'm like, dude, there ain't no way that we can do that. We didn't run title yet. How are we going to be able to submit money to you when we have no idea if there's even clean title yet? We're not going to have enough time to do that.
Right.
And he's like, nah, all right, then I'm not doing the deal. So I said, okay, well, why don't we do this? And I went ahead and got all 4 of those agreements in place. The P&S, power of attorney, memorandum, and actually for that one, we didn't even do a lien. But we have the last 2. I mean, the last 2 I said, yeah, power of attorney and memorandum. We have that on the property. Here's what happens, bro. We go to list the property. We give him his $2,500. We list the property. Everything's going smooth. It's going cool. And then freaking the guy just stops answering the door. Okay. Our realtor tries calling him a day later. She's trying to get people in there to see the house and all the things, right? A realtor calls him and he's like, if you come by my house again, I'm going to shoot you.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, yo, Hope, don't go there. Don't go to that property. We don't need this. We don't want no smoke. You know what I'm saying? We just have the memorandum. We'll chill out. We'll sit on our $2,500.
Right.
Okay, so literally, we haven't even done this deal yet, but I've had, I think, 1 or 2 people call me asking me to lift my memorandum. So this is probably like a month later goes by. The realtor actually called me. She says, "Hey, somebody called me and said that you have something clouding the title, and they were looking to buy the house." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, what's up? What do they want for it? Like, how much are they willing to pay?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know." Ended up resulting into a wholesaler that just didn't know what the heck they were doing. They were never going to buy the property anyway. But here's the craziest part now. I have power of attorney for this property. And if I really wanted to, I could sell Homeboy's house with him in the property. And somebody would be able to buy it with him in the property and have to evict him.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Now we're not going to do that. We're just sitting on our $2,500, and whenever somebody wants to buy the damn thing, they're gonna have to pay us 20 grand.
I love it.
Right?
Yo,
But
memorandums are important.
yeah, bro.
Super important. I got paid $15K off a memorandum once.
We could probably do a whole entire episode.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So ended up resulting in, I think actually not even I know Homeboy's on drugs. Like he's out of his tree. But yeah, we're gonna get paid at some point. We got $2,500 sitting there. Pretty much, I think. No. We didn't put that in escrow. Here's the problem. We literally sent it to him directly. It's just Mike.
Did you ask me if you think I should do that? If I think you should do that before you did it?
I probably
told me about that.
I probably did. And here's Mike thinking he's macho man. He's just like, all right, screw it, whatever. Let's just send $2,500. I don't care. Now I'm like, bro, I like my $2,500 back, but you know what? Why don't we just sit on this thing and maybe down the line?
Could you imagine if you would have got like a hard money lender or something and like put actual work and time into the property?
No, well, that's the thing, bro. So it's like we can have this conversation to end up. Okay. Everybody wants to be so freaking protected and make sure that they're so conservative and make sure that no matter what, they're protected and everything. But like, bro, we're freaking investors, dog. Sometimes you just got to go throw the bread out and hopefully the shit comes back. Like at the end of the day, it's $2,500. We're going to get paid on it at some point.
Yeah, like, what if it was $50,000?
Oh, then that's dead, bro. Then that's where I gotta. It's like somebody at the casino. How like much are you willing to gamble? Right? No, I'm not a gambler. I'm a freaking investor. So at the end of the day, I do have my ducks in a row. But sometimes you gotta like pay to play, bro.
I feel that.
So we threw out the $2,500, and if I know it's gonna come back at some point, it's just like a matter of when. And the coolest part about it, bro, is that even if it's in 5 years, right? Somebody calls me and says that they want to buy the house and we still have a cloud on title. Dude, the valuation of the property goes up so high just because valuation, that's what real estate does. Real estate over the course of 5 to 10 years, it's not going to go down. It's just going to go up. Okay. When somebody hits me up in 5 years, I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to lift the memorandum for $100 grand. Or we're just going to buy the house and make $100,000. So it's like, that's the thing about it. So I wouldn't have done the $2,500 if I wasn't able to get all that in place. So I literally had a notary go to his house, get the power of attorney signed and all the things signed in order to be protected. So
I love that, bro. I love that. Shoot, man. Well, you have anything else to drop about Novations before we wrap this up?
This is a breakdown of like what a Novation is. And now I know a lot of people are probably asking like, Mike, yes, this is cool, but like, what are the logistics? Like there's got to be some sort of logistics. You're talking about these 4 pieces of paperwork, but how do you actually get those 4 pieces of paperwork in place? And how do you identify one of these deals? How do you know if this is a deal or not? We can go through that on a later day. Maybe it's actually something that we can touch on because me and Daryll have a present here next week. Maybe we could touch on it during the present.
I like that. Real quick though, can you leave them with a pitch? How would you pitch innovation so they can take action? For the action takers that are watching right now, who are going to jump on the calls, or going to jump on calls tonight, tomorrow morning, and they just want to have an extra tool in their tool belt, want to use extra tool in their tool belt. How do you pitch innovation, bro?
So at the end of the day, it is very important that you find the seller's absolutely bottom dollar. So before, actually, somebody said in the chat, in the first place, why was he selling it for $300K? He was stuck on $100,000 in his pocket that he could take out of the country. He was saying, Mike, I am going out of the country after I go to Florida. I'm going to Florida for like a couple months. Once I leave here, I need $100,000 to live in the other country that I'm going to. Okay. So like that was his reason. So his absolutely bottom dollar was $100,000. Okay. So it's very important before you go ahead and pitch anything, figure out what their absolutely bottom dollar is. If you need to figure out how to get the bottom dollar out of somebody, then go join Daryll's sales training or Dog Pound community or the Facebook community and figure that out. Or go watch our YouTube channels because it's on there. So you got to find the bottom dollar. And then once you find the bottom dollar, you're like, okay, Nick, well, if I could get you the $300,000 here in the next 3 months, what would prevent us from moving forward? And he says, nothing. Okay, cool. So if I can figure out a way to make sure that you're secured and you get it, you don't have to pay anything else, like any realtor fees, closing costs, you're ready to go. And he's like, yeah, for sure. I'm like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring my crew in. We're going to bring our money in. We're going to bring our contractors in. We will help your brother get out of the property and we'll facilitate everything for you. That's the biggest word here that I always use is when I'm pitching it, I say, we're going to facilitate everything for you. You don't have to do a damn thing. Right? And that's the verbiage that I use. Facilitate, facilitate, facilitate. Okay, so what if somebody can facilitate the rest of the transaction for you from here on out, from now until the next 3 months, and you get your $300,000? What would prevent you from moving forward? Boom. And they say nothing. I'm ready to go. Okay, cool. I'm sending the freaking agreement. So, Daryll, the biggest word there is facilitate.
I love that. I love that, bro. That's the sauce, man. We got to end it off on that one, bro. Yo, so welcome back, man, to Wholesale Hardknocks. We'll see y'all next week, each and every Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Arizona time. We'll see y'all next week. We got a special surprise for y'all next week, so we'll let y'all know when we see y'all, man. Catch y'all next time. Out of here.
Peace.